All right, guys, I'm here today with Robert Blackie, who is teaching English online in Mexico City. Welcome, Robert. How's the weather for you there in Mexico City today?
It's the beginning of the rainy season, so I'm expecting a thunderstorm any minute actually, but that's typical during the rainy season in the afternoon.
Okay, does that last for a while, or does it just kind of come
Yeah,
rumbling through?
usually comes rumbling through for an hour or two, and then after that it stops and you're fine for the rest of the night.
That sounds manageable. I could do that.
Absolutely. It keeps it cool. I will say it's like a little air conditioning in the middle of the day, so I don't complain. I'm very happy.
Nice, nice. All right, well, yeah, like I said, thanks for joining us, and for everyone who's watching the video, thanks for taking the time to learn more about teaching abroad. So I have some questions for you.
Sure.
My first question for you, Robert, what made you decide to teach English abroad?
Great question. Well, I have worked in corporate America for many years, and it just wasn't satisfying. I have to say, I was very unhappy. I love travel. I love language. I had wanted to learn Spanish for many years, and when you work all day, you just don't have the energy and the time. It's difficult to get the time. So
Yeah.
I was living in Chicago and right down the street from the International TEFL Academy. And one day I went to an open house and I learned a little bit about the program. It still took me a year to make that step between my open house and actually attending the certification class. But once I made that first step, I have never been happier. And it gives me the opportunity to do the two things I love, which is travel and learn. And so this is the first city in my, I hope, a long journey uh, around the world.
That's awesome. So, okay, it took you a year to finally make the leap. That seems reasonable. What concerns did you have about teaching abroad?
Sure. Well, supporting myself was the main one. I had a very good job in Chicago and I made decent money. I have student loans, so of course that was a concern. And also leaving my friends, being far away from my family, those are all major concerns of mine. But at the end of the day, you have to really look inside yourself and decide, okay, well, do I want to live my life for me and pursue what I want, or do I want to just do what I think I'm supposed to do, what people say you should do, what society says you should do? So I said, no, I'm not happy. I'm going to make that change and take control of my life. And that was, I had those concerns, but I've been supporting myself now for over a year in Mexico City. And I made sure I saved up enough. I let my friends and family know. They accepted my decision. And here I am. My mom is actually coming to visit me for the first time next week. So
No.
for a week, I'm very excited.
Man, you are really walking the walk. Those are some very legitimate concerns. I'd say from many of the prospective students that I talk to, that's probably up there at the highest. You know, something inside is like, you're being crazy. This is not how life is supposed to look. You're supposed to stick with your good job and get a mortgage and, create a family and settle down. And wow, and you really just decided that you're doing what makes you happy. That's awesome.
Yeah, my philosophy is if it doesn't scare you a little bit, if it doesn't make you uncomfortable, if you don't lose a little sleep, then you're not doing enough. And once I had that anxiety and that feeling, I said, okay, I know this is the right decision because it's taken me out of my comfort zone. And once you make that decision, it's really quite exhilarating.
I love that, man. Okay. Well, so you're in Mexico. Had you been to Mexico before you decided to teach there?
Yeah, I was in Mexico City in 2010. I visited with a friend, and I really loved the city. I it wasn't the reason why I chose Mexico City. There were many other reasons, but I was familiar with the city before I came here.
Nice. I love Mexico City. I went for like 5 days once, and that is nowhere near as much time as I need to put into it. I'll be back.
No, exactly. I tell anybody who visits me, at least plan a week, please, because you just can't fit enough into 5 or fewer days.
Way too much delicious food.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly.
to say the
Tell my
least.
waist.
So what type of visa are you on? Are you on a temporary tourist visa, or are you on a resident visa?
I'm on a tourist visa still.
Okay.
Visa.
Okay. And are you having to renew that every certain amount of days?
Yeah, so a lot of people have this question. I get asked this a lot. Because I teach online, I don't need a work visa because technically I'm working outside of the country. It would be like if you come here on vacation and do work from home, from your hotel in the US. It's no different except I do it full time. So every 180 days, I need to leave the country and come back. And that's very doable because usually every 6 months I visit my mom, I visit friends. Right after my mom visits, my 180 days will be up. I'll be going to Chicago to
Nice.
visit my friends and reset my visa. So for me, it isn't a bad thing. The only problem is that I don't qualify for the national health insurance here. If I worked here at a brick and mortar school, they would sponsor your visa. You would still have to pay for it, but you would at least have the opportunity, and then you would get onto the national health insurance program in the country.
Okay, that's a good thing to know. Yeah. Everything else about what you just said sounds pretty awesome.
Thank you.
And what about housing in Mexico City? You know, I know it's notoriously crowded. How did you go about finding housing, and where did you decide to live?
Great question. This is something that a lot of people wonder. So I strongly advise that if you are going to be coming to Mexico City, I used Airbnb, and I found an apartment on Airbnb for 2 months to start. Airbnb does, usually people will offer discounts if you rent for more than a month of anywhere from 5 to 30%. So I found an Airbnb for a couple months. I assumed that would be enough for me to get started. I had saved up enough to pay for it on my credit card. And Airbnb offers you that insurance. You're secure. If something happens, they will cover you. They will find you some place to go. They will get you a hotel. It's just so much safer. Once you're here, there are sites for roommates. Dada Room is a big website for finding roomies. That's what I used, and I found a roommate. And then once I was with the roommate for 6 months, I decided to strike out on my own. And again, I returned to Airbnb, and I found a very nice place on Airbnb who I rent, a nice old lady who actually lives next door to me.
That's kind of
And it's been, I pay a little bit more to live alone in a studio, and it's a sizable studio, but it's safe, it's comfortable, and I have my independence and I can do my classroom any way I want.
yeah.
Now, renting privately is difficult in Mexico City because to rent privately usually requires a first month, last month, a police background check, which is about a half month's rent, and then what's called a fiador, which is a co-signer that needs to be a person who owns property in the city mortgage free. That's nearly impossible for a foreigner. So there are some other companies that will rent to people, foreigners, young professionals, like I want to say City Spaces. I think they have a Facebook page, and they will rent you on a semester basis. Usually, it's you have your own unit. Sometimes it's shared amenities like kitchen and living areas, but it depends on how much you pay, and it comes out to a little bit cheaper than what I pay on Airbnb, but you have those shared spaces so you can meet some more people, and it might be a better option for some people, especially because it's short term.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that about renting in Mexico City, but it sounds like you got a lot of alternative options. Like, it didn't sound like a terribly difficult situation.
No, absolutely not. It was daunting when I first arrived, so I tried a lot of different things, and I found that that was the best option. Airbnb, if you want a roommate, save some money. Dada Room, or like a semester type short-term lease through City Spaces, all
Cool.
work great.
Easy. Well, let's talk about how you're making your rent, because I can tell you have a really cool little classroom set up there. Is it like a poster, or where did you get that?
Yeah, it's a poster, $10 on Amazon.com. Amazon delivers to Mexico, everybody, so you don't have to go through Amazon withdrawals.
Good to know. Okay, so you're teaching online for 4 different organizations. I know you're at iTutor Group, italki, and you're going to start with Bling ABC and GoGo Kid, which, I mean, the names of all of those are just, I love the names of online education companies. Why are you working with so many platforms?
Sure. So I started with italki so I could do private lessons. And I did iTutor because they were a 24-hour platform that allowed me to teach adults. At that time, I was very apprehensive to teach children. Now, have gotten, in the meantime, some experience teaching children. I have some private students here, and also through iTutor, I started to take some younger students. But the problem with iTutor is they will pay you based on your location. So in Mexico, I make significantly less than somebody in the US, Canada, or UK. So GoGo Kid and Bling ABC do not do that. They will pay you very well no matter where you live. So that's why I've made the transition. I've gained the experience of teaching children. I am much more comfortable teaching children. I never thought I could, but now I'm very confident in my teaching ability. So those of you who are apprehensive about teaching children, don't put yourself down. Just, you can practice, you can do it. And I have, all these little stuffy toys that I use.
Oh,
The difference is the children have more fixed hours, so I do teach very early and sometimes late at night.
Yeah.
But the pay is double what I made at iTutor, so I'll do it.
Worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
So you've got these different organizations, and it kind of sounds like you've already made this comparison, but is there one that you think you like the best? Like if you were to compare those 4 and recommend to people watching this video, what would you say is your best, and what would you recommend?
Sure, absolutely. So Bling ABC offers more stability. The drawback is it's a semester system. So if you don't start at the beginning of a semester, summer, fall, winter, spring, you're not going to get bookings that often. But once you do, the semester starts, they'll give you quite a bit. GoGo Kid, my experience has been extremely slow to start, but I know this is typical. So parents have to find you, have to get to know you. They don't assign students to you. They have to find you and book you. As you become more popular, you'll get more stable bookings. iTutor, they do everything for you. So I am always fully booked on iTutor, always. But the problem is that they pay significantly less. So I was working a lot with them, about 50 hours a week, just to pay bills and stay afloat. But now that I will start teaching children, I have my private students here, I can dial that down, and eventually I want to get down to more a reasonable working schedule.
More time eating the food, less time at your computer. Yeah.
More time studying Spanish. That's my goal.
Absolutely. So how much time did it take you to get established as a teacher where you're like, I have a consistent schedule? Did you ramp up to 50 hours very quickly? How much time did that take to get to a place where you're happy?
Sure. With iTutor Group, it was within a month, very quickly. Through italki, because I was doing my own lessons and students had to find me, it took about 2 months. But again, the pay was still relatively low in order to maintain my consistent bookings on italki. So with GoGo Kid, I expect it to take a couple months. With Bling ABC, again, it depends on when you start. If you start right before September, you can get in on that fall semester. You're going to be great. You will get plenty of bookings in the mornings, early mornings, but still you'll be booked, and then weekends. So.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question. Like, what's your schedule like? Another thought I had as we're talking about this, you mentioned something about once you're popular and more teachers or more parents know about you and they can find you, you can pick up more consistent hours. What do you mean by that? Like, I think you probably mean reviews, correct? But can you explain a little bit more about what that looks like?
Absolutely. So when you work for companies like italki, you will, of course, get reviewed by your students, your reputation increases, and once you get high rating, you can charge a little more. With GoGoKid, they do a credit system. So you're given a credit rating. As you gain more experience, parents can see your video, see you have experience with the company, see you've been around for a while, that you're not going anywhere. They will be more comfortable to book you. Of course, how you present yourself is important. You want to be professional, yet still look a little fun, like you're not going to just talk like this the whole class. You
Yeah.
want to be animated. Show the parents, hey, your kids will have fun. They won't fall asleep with me. And with adults, the same. They want to see a professional teacher who speaks articulately and who they feel confident in learning English from.
Right on. Yeah, that makes total sense. So back to your schedule, I know a lot of these larger employers work with kids in Asia. So, what are your hours like? You mentioned, doing a lot with iTutor Group, but what hours have you been working, and what hours do you expect to be working as you transition to working more with Bling, ABC, and GoGoKid?
Sure. Right now, Central Standard Time, we are in daylight savings, so peak hours will be about 5 in the morning until 8 in the morning. So 4 hours, and then again at night, 8 p.m. until midnight. So those are your peaks right now. Then when you go out of savings time, it will all come back an hour. And that's peak in China. That's peak. But with iTutor, you can work anytime. I do work during the day if I have, free time during the day. So I can work 12 in noon time, 3 in the afternoon. You'll get some students from other countries, some night owls who work the night shift, but it just won't be as much. Your bookings will be less consistent. You'll have fewer students. Of course, weekends are peak too. So you can work pretty much any time on the weekend and get plenty of students.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like you get plenty of time to explore during the day then.
Oh yeah, I absolutely, and it's worth it. It really is. And if you get tired, I take a little siesta, and then I'm ready to go for the rest of the day.
You are doing it. All right, where were we? So this is a question that I actually put in the sheet because I'm very curious about the internet connection in Mexico. You need to have reliable internet. So how does that work for you? And do you have to have like a backup plan if your internet goes down?
Yeah, phenomenal question. So internet's great here. We are talking now, and I assume we're having no issues. I rarely have internet issues. Most companies do require a cabled connection. So be sure if you're going to rent. I actually brought a big cable with me, so I could, just in case I have to run it. So the cable I have now, I have to, connect to my landlord or my neighbor's router in her apartment. Thankfully, there's a little hole in the wall that connects, so I can just run it through.
Yeah.
So just be aware that when you're renting, I always ask potential renters, hey, do you have a wired connection, or do you have a place where I can connect my wire? Online companies are very strict. That's almost non-negotiable. But other than that, I haven't had any issue. Backup plan. I have cell phone data. I always load up my data. Honestly, I pay $15 a month and I get plenty of data. My social media is all included and it doesn't take away from my data.
Huh.
So if I have a power failure, I tether my laptop. I have 2 batteries. And then of course you just want to have a nice battery powered lamp so that loses power, you hit your lamp, you tether your internet, you got battery, my laptop is battery powered, I got enough for a whole day, you're good to go.
Nice. Sounds easy. Okay. Now, here's a good one. Do you feel, and I hope the answer is yes because you have so much to explore, do you feel like the income you're earning through teaching English online in Mexico City would be more substantial than if you were just teaching local students, private tutoring or working for a school.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I can tell you right now, working for a brick and mortar school in Mexico City, you will make about 15,000 pesos a month, which is about $700 to $800 a month. So that is nothing. You could get a roommate, but you would definitely be breaking even. You would be breaking even. Half your money would go to rent. If you have student loans or bills, there it goes. So you wouldn't be enjoying it. I made double what what brick and mortar schools were offering me within 6 months of living here.
Nice.
So I broke even. That was my second, third month teaching. I was making exactly what a brick and mortar school would pay me, and then after that I just made more. So that's why I teach online. You could get a job with a university if your Spanish is very good. They will pay you better, you'll get better benefits. I am learning Spanish, so I did not have that opportunity. Maybe down the road I will, but right now online is just the best option for me.
Right.
And plus the hours in brick and mortar schools could be very long too. We're talking 9-hour days plus a Saturday. It's a lot.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you figured out the loophole, get the most out of it.
Yeah, trying my best. It's been a learning experience, I will say that.
I'm curious, how did you find out that, teaching English online was going to be a way to live in Mexico City and be paying on your student loans? Because a lot of people, they discover that once they arrive. And they're like, oh, I could have been teaching online?
Yeah, that's basically how it worked. So I started with italki. I had, I knew about italki. I learned about it through Jessica, who was I know she's just left to go to California, but a teacher over at TEFL Academy.
So our Chicago course professor.
Yeah, she was great. But so I had planned to teach through italki online and teach in a brick and mortar school.
Okay.
I had several interviews at brick and mortar schools. I was offered a couple positions, but the pay was just, I just couldn't accept the pay because I was already making what they were offering me online, and I could easily make more online if I wanted to work. So I felt terrible declining, but in the end, you have to pay the bills and you have to survive, and only you are putting food on your table. So that was the decision.
Yeah, sounds like a good one. So the next question is about saving money. Are you able to save money with the bills and your student loans and everything?
Great question. So I do recommend to people, try to start with these online companies before you move so that all you do is move and start teaching immediately. I did not do that just because I didn't know any better. My first couple months, I was a bit negative, so I racked up some debt. Now I'm positive, so you pay down that debt. I've been able to travel. Absolutely. You can save money here if you work full time. If you want to work less and just enjoy your time, you absolutely can, and pay your bills and enjoy and travel a little bit. So I've gone to Puerto Vallarta. I visited the U.S. to see my family. I visited friends in Chicago in my first year. So I haven't saved because I've traveled. But you definitely could. If that's your goal and your objective, you could definitely save.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I think that's really good advice, that if you establish yourself with these companies and you go through that ramp up period from home, when you arrive in country, if you're just cruising along, then all that's money in the bank.
Absolutely. You don't have to go through that few months of, what am I going to do for money? Like I had to my first few months. I had students, but I just wasn't making enough. So save yourself. If I could go back in time, I would have started in Chicago. As soon as I received my TEFL certification, started, and then ramped up.
Well, I'm definitely going to share that advice with students. So what is your average monthly cost of living? Outside of travel and paying off your other financial responsibilities, what are you spending on rent and going out and food?
Sure. So I live alone in a studio, a decent studio in a safe area. So I pay 600 a month approximately. It varies because it's Airbnb, so it always varies a little bit. Some months it's in the high fives or the low sixes, but the average is 600 a month.
Okay.
That includes everything. Um, so my only other expense here is health insurance. I pay through a private company. It's about $230 semester by semester. So just under $1,000 a year. I do recommend it. And
Yeah.
then food. I mean, food is so cheap here. I mean, you really don't need to spend a lot. Um, I mean, anything else is really just optional. I think food you could easily spend, depends on how much you want to eat and how fancy. If you need to have wine with your meal, then you'll spend $200 a month, but you could easily spend a lot less. So I think total, if you want to live like me, I budget about 1,000 a month for everything. I make much more than that per month. On a good month, double. I can make more than double that, um, depending on how many hours I work. So you can get a roommate, pay less per month, and you'll save more.
Wow. I mean, you are living such a nice lifestyle for $1,000 a month. What am I doing in Chicago?
It depends on the area. Now, I will recommend to people, cities have their popular areas. Like, Mexico City has Polanco, Condesa,
Mm-hmm.
Centro, Roma. Think outside of those areas. And uh, what I did was I found a very well-connected neighborhood that's working class, very safe, very beautiful, but it's not full of foreigners and tourists. So the rent's much cheaper. 2 metro lines and a metro bus very close. I'm extremely well connected. It's got everything I need nearby. So don't be afraid to, after you get to know the city after the first couple months, look in these working class, middle class neighborhoods. Look for Airbnbs or roommates in those areas. You'll save a lot more money. And that's really been the big game changer for me.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, especially after getting comfortable in that country, because it's natural to probably be afraid to get out of the neighborhoods that you have come to know. So it's comforting to hear that. Um, man, one of these questions is about food, and I can't wait to get to it.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
so, so even though you don't work in a language school, do you have any kind of feeling about what the demand for English teachers is in Mexico City if someone did want to work in a school?
Sure, that's a great question. There is quite a bit of demand. You will come here and you'll find a lot of private language schools that are always looking for teachers, especially business English teachers, because this is Mexico City. This is the capital. This is where the power, the companies, the headquarters are. So you will find work. Um, you will not have an issue. Now, I will say, it is Mexico. The process is slow and arduous sometimes. We'll go from first interview, you'll wait 2 weeks. Second interview, wait 2 weeks. Demo class, wait 2 weeks. Finally get an offer just to say, that's not enough, and which is what happened to me.
Right.
By the time I started interviewing and then finally got the offer a month and a half later, I was already making what they offered me online. So you have the option. Just be prepared. Things here work a little slower.
Yeah.
But there's definitely demand. I will say you will not have any problems finding a job if that's what you prefer. Definitely
Well, again, very reassuring. And I think for a lot of Americans, at least, that slower lifestyle is part of the appeal, right?
not. When you're looking for a job, it's maddening because you want to start. But yes, in other aspects, of course, it can be. Let me warn you, you have to get used to it. You will be
Yeah.
at a grocery store and the cashier is just taking their time. There's no rush and you got places to go. You have a class to teach. So just be prepared for traffic.
That's
Whew. You
right.
want to go across town in an Uber? You need to really plan for that. If you're at rush hour, expect it to take an hour. There is a great metro system here. it does get crowded. If there's a thunderstorm, the metro system almost grinds to a halt. So just be ready for these little inconveniences when you're here, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, good tips. So, what is your favorite dish you've had? Mexican
Oh my
food
gosh.
dish you've had since you've gotten there?
I have two favorites. One is al pastor, which is a type of meat that they put on a large skewer, and it gets fire roasted. You use it on tacos. You can get all types of other foods with it's a pork that's extremely good. Mole, I will say, if you have the opportunity. I had never had mole before I moved here. It's a very dark sauce, phenomenal, really good. And I say those are probably my two favorites. Anything with mole and tacos al pastor. Super simple. You can find them anywhere in the city, but for me, they're extremely good. Um, I'm trying to think of other things. I have my one good friend here is a chef. So whenever I want to try something new, he cooks it for me. I just have to let him have control of my kitchen, and I get to try new things.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Good find.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if you can tell, but it's getting close to dinner time here in Chicago, and I am gonna go get tacos after this. Thanks for.
Absolutely, yes.
So one last question, and answer this however you want. But I think that thing you said to me right before we started the broadcast was pretty powerful. What's one piece of advice you would give to someone who's on the fence about teaching English abroad?
Sure. The hardest part is making the decision to do it, is moving forward. And as you know, it took me a year. I went to the open house at International TEFL Academy in Chicago. I used to walk by there on my way home from work because I lived down the street. And one day I saw a sign, open house. I popped in. It took me a year after that open house to still make the decision to quit my job, get my certification, and move abroad. It was a difficult decision. I understand the anxiety. I had a great job. I had great money. I had good friends in Chicago, but I wasn't happy. And taking myself out of that comfort zone, taking control of my life, and trying something new was the best decision I ever made. I knew as soon as I started, when I met the phenomenal staff, when I made great friends who I still talk to from my class, that I had made the right decision. And I have no regrets. It's just making that decision. That's the toughest part. Once you do that, I promise it gets easier. No, I'm not being, I'm not saying this like, I'm not being asked to say this. This is the truth. And I do believe that you won't regret it.
I mean, well said. I try to tell people that all the time, but it doesn't sound better than when it comes from someone who's really lived it and done it. So, well said.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's all I have for you, Robert. I really appreciate you taking your time to share your experiences today. I mean, you are doing this right. You're living in an awesome city. You found a great way to make it really lucrative for yourself. So have a wonderful weekend. I hope the storms blow through quickly. You get to enjoy your evening. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Nice to meet you also.